Welcome everybody today to the People's Court and the People's Jury of Dublin South Central. As the deadline for the home tax is fast approaching, we are here today to publicly try and sentence the Labour and Fine Gael TTs of Dublin South Central for crimes of fraud, deception, conspiracy and greed, and to voice once again our opposition to this hated property tax.
Yeah, well said.
In the week where Ireland's role as a tax haven for multinational companies is becoming more apparent to the general public, the government is insisting on ordinary homeowners footing the bill for the crisis caused by the banks and other titans of capitalism. It is worth pointing out that when the International Financial Services Centre was founded as the hub of Ireland's tax haven, the very first company to move in and avail of this lucrative tax law was none other than our very own allied Irish Bank. These banks and multinational corporations are getting away scot-free after all the damage that they've caused to our economy and our society. The entire cost of the crisis is being foisted onto working people and we can't take any more.
Absolutely no more.
Hang them! Hang them! Hang them!
Axe this tax!
We must proceed with the course proceeding. Silence, please. The government have been engaged in a bullying campaign in order to make people pay for this tax, and they've been assisted by the Revenue Commissioners as well as the media in this endeavour. Well, we're here today to say that we're not going to be bullied anymore.
No more!
No more!
No more!
And those responsible for this crisis are being left unscathed. Through the boycott of the property tax, we will continue to highlight the unjust nature of this new bailout tax.
Jail the bankers!
Jail the bankers, and it's time for the government to look for alternatives, such as taxing the wealthy and such as taxing the multinational corporations. We will not be coerced into paying this tax.
Oh, we won't!
Axe the tax!
Bring in the three accused.
Yo!
Boo! 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 Shame on you! Shame! Shame! People! Shame! Shame!
Are you Catherine Byrne of Wilson Road?
Yes, I am.
Boo!
Are you Eric Byrne of Ashdale Road?
Boo!
And are you Michael Conaghan of Valley Road?
Boo!
Today you appear to answer a number of charges of fraud, deception, conspiracy and greed against the voters of Dublin South Central.
Boo!
The first charge relates to the property tax. It is charged that you had no mandate to legislate for this charge. You were elected after giving promises to the very opposite. In the Fine Gael manifesto you declared that a recurring residential property tax on the family home was unfair.
Lawyers!
In the Labour manifesto you declared you did not support the property tax and would investigate instead a site value charge.
Shame on you!
Yet both Fine Gael and Labour, jointly and separately, conspired and did in fact introduce a property tax. But you blamed this on the previous Fianna Fáil government.
Lawyers!
And
Lawyers!
the
Lawyers!
demands of the Troika.
Tax the tax!
You are charged with fraud for electoral purposes. How do you plead, Catherine Byrne?
Not guilty.
Boo!
How do you plead, Eric Byrne?
Boo! Boo!
How do you plead, Michael Conaghan?
Not guilty. Boo! Remove them from power.
Out.
Burn them.
Catherine Byrne, in the face of the ravages of austerity being inflicted on the people of this constituency, you have had nothing to say about it. In fact, after the last budget, one of the harshest of the 5 austerity budgets, you issued a newsletter that made no reference whatsoever to the hardship that could be caused. You expressed no empathy whatsoever with your fellow citizens. But when constituents came to your clinic to ask you to speak out against measures causing hardship, such as the property tax, your response was to call the police on them and to physically push them out of your office.
Shame! Shame! Shame on you!
Eric Byrne, you claim to stand with the people and to represent those Dubliners whose voices have gone previously unheard. And yet, when ordinary people protested at your clinic during the budget last year, your response was to get angry with them and ask them did they not understand the pressure that you were under.
Now feel their anger, Eric.
In fact, your election manifesto speaks about protecting the income of poor and low-income families.
Liar.
Because they are spenders rather than savers. And it's all about the economy and Labour now.
Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame!
Shame on Labour!
Watch your vocal lapse.
And Michael Conaghan, you claimed in 2011 that people could only have hope when a government that carried out the mandate of the electorate was in place. That only Labour in such a government could guarantee that the principles of fairness and social justice could guide the difficult decisions ahead. that the single biggest mistake made was the blanket guarantee to the banks and the bondholders. And yet you have stood by as every decision made by Fine Gael and Labour coalition has flown in the face of these
Economic traitors.
You all committed to a more equal distribution of wealth and power. In light of your participation in government and your voting record in the Dáil, you are once more charged with dishonesty and fraud. How do you plead, Catherine Byrne?
Not guilty.
Shame!
How do you plead, Eric Byrne?
Not guilty.
Shame!
How do you plead, Michael Conaghan?
Not guilty.
Shame! Hang them high!
Out.
We now move on to that well-known international gang, the bondholders.
Boo!
I direct this charge in
Your
particular
friends.
to Eric Byrne and Michael Conaghan. Your own gang boss, Eamon Gilmore, promised that it would be Frankfurt's way or Labour's way in order to get votes in the last election.
Shame! Shame!
Now it seems that Labour's way is Frankfurt's way. Mega-rich bondholders are getting their losing bets returned at the expense of ordinary people gathered here today. Your rich friends are not experiencing austerity, are they? In fact, austerity is paying a dividend for them. The richest 300 people in Ireland increased their wealth last year by a whopping €3.9 billion.
Robbers!
They now have 66 billion in their back pockets. It is the contention of this court that this represents a massive transfer of wealth to your rich friends in this country and abroad. You are charged with conspiracy to steal. How do you plead, Catherine Byrne?
Not guilty.
Boo!
How do you plead?
Boo!
How do you plead, Michael Conaghan?
Not guilty.
Boo! Guilty as charged.
There is eruptions in the People's Court.
burn them.
So, I will not call for order in court because the people should be angry.
Hey! Burn them!
There is a further charge that during the elections you stated that child benefit was a red line issue, that there would be no cuts. Yet Labour broke its word and now a family can lose up to €100 a month. You're once more charged with fraud for electoral advantage. How do you all plead?
Liars! Liars! Liars!
I'm not guilty.
We now move on to the question of education. In your manifesto, you all said you were committed to protecting children's education because we believe they deserve the best start in life that education can give them. And yet, the schools in your constituency, nearly all of which are designated as disadvantaged, have suffered huge budgetary, resource and teacher cuts. Children are losing out on their education, and those who need it most do not have the supports that they need. But this does not happen in the schools that your rich friends send their children to. This doesn't happen in Gonzaga, or in St. Michael's College, or in Loretto on the Green.
No, not at home. No. Last players.
You said you would not reintroduce fees for third level education, yet you did just that, and compounded your crime by abolishing supports for graduate students, and you cut the student maintenance grant. In relation to this further charge of fraud for electoral advantage, how do you all plead?
Time of the class war.
We now move to a charge related to financial matters. During your watch, nurses, teachers, bus workers, people working in the Revenue Tax Office, firefighters, cleaners, carpenters, and many, many more have had their hours cut, their wages cut, and their hours increased. Is more work for less the new slogan? Why did you all not tell the people of Dublin South Central about your plan to drive them into even more
That's our
poverty?
lawyers.
This represents a further charge of fraud for electoral disadvantage and conspiracy to steal. How do you plead, Catherine Byrne?
Not guilty.
Shame on you, Catherine! Shame on you, Catherine!
How do you plead, Eric Byrne?
Shame on you, Eric! Hey, shame! Shame!
Michael Conaghan?
Not guilty.
Shame! Lawyer! Shame!
You all complain about low spending on our health services, and yet you all voted in the Dáil for cuts to health spending. You got your votes, but we got more patients on trolleys and up to 24-hour waiting times in accident and emergency. You are charged with fraud for electoral advantage and conspiracy to damage the health of those who cannot afford private hospitals. How do you all plead?
Shame! Shame! Lawyers! Lawyers! Have the quality of convictions!
You have voted in Dáil Éireann to cut the income of the most disadvantaged in society. Shamefully, those with disabilities. A young disabled adult was receiving €188 a week, giving them some small measure of independence. They now receive just €71, just €71 per week.
Ooh.
You are charged with gross fraud for electoral advantage and the most nasty and small-minded conspiracy to steal. How do you all plead? Guilty.
Shame on you!
Liars!
Shame!
Liars!
You, people of the jury, you have heard the charges, you have heard the response. I would now like you to step aside and give great consideration to the charges and to give your verdict. But before you do, I will remind you, I will plead with you to find these TDs guilty on all counts. They are not suitable for public service. They have a long record of self-promotion and self-interest and dishonesty, self-enrichment at the public expense, and conspiracy to steal from working families. They have displayed nothing but contempt for the voters of Dublin South Central. The people have looked into your circumstances. Let me remind the people that the average industrial wage is €33,000 per year. A family living on a pension can live on €22,000 a year. An unemployed family can live on €18,500 a year. Yet all of you who claim to represent these people have an annual salary each of €120,000 per year. All of your salaries are paid from the public purse and out of the pockets of the ordinary families of this country. I now refer to you, the People's Jury, for the sentencing of these TDs. How should they be sentenced?
Guilty!
You are all found guilty as charged.
Guilty!